Ted Dawson, what are you going to tell us about?
About a sport you probably don't know much about, and probably you don't either, despite the fact that one of the major sports in this country is auto racing. But for most people, it's centered around the annual Indy 500, the major stock car events, and of course the Grand Prix. But that's not where racing is really at. The real racing, the real racers start on the dirt, start with the sprinters. These are the sprint cars, sliding, spinning, sometimes sailing through the turns on a half-mile dirt track. Auto racing at its earthiest, proving ground for eventual Indy drivers. Names like A.J. Foyt, Parnelli Jones, Bobby Unser all began their careers in the high-powered, lightweight, 100-mile-an-hour sprint cars. Many say they're the wildest ride in auto racing, and some say you have to be crazy to go near one. If that's true, then this story is about the craziest of them all. Because in the California Racing Association, ruling body of West Coast sprinters, Jimmy Oskie is number one. Jimmy Oskie, a 32-year-old auto glass installer, is a three-time CRA sprint car champion and leading point getter this year. It's Wednesday morning, and he leaves work here at his father's small shop in Los Angeles and drives here to the JFK Machine Parts Company in Sun Valley, where he and his sponsor, veteran sprint car builder Jack Kindle, spend the afternoon tuning the car for this week's race.
Oh, yeah. We watch the track. So we're running tight again. See if it holds up. I'd rather have it finish the race.
Even with the cars in top mechanical condition and the drivers all expert racers, nearly every event has its toll of spin-outs, rollovers, bumps, and bruises, as a score of sprinters charge wheel to wheel down the thick clay track at speeds of over 100 miles an hour. The winning driver seldom earns more than $1,000 a race, and usually about half that. More often than not, at least one driver will leave the race in the rear of an ambulance. It all makes you wonder why.
When I first started driving, I thought it was the exciting thing to do. So then it went from there through the years. It went to trying to win and wanting to do good. And then it went from that to just different feelings you get, different highs and lows, and the money helps too. I like that. So then I've made a lot of good friends out there, and it just seems like something really neat to do on a Saturday.
There could be no sprint car racing, no racing at all without the Jack Kindles of this world. A 50-year veteran of race car competition, Kindle gets his kicks building an expensive hobby.
Build a fairly good car. It's about $15,000. That's the car and the four wheels, and a few ground equipment and spare engines and everything, you can get 3 times that much. We have 6 engines for the cars, and we have a hauler. We have 50 wheels and tires. And you have to have a good heliarc welder, and so it probably adds up $50,000, $60,000 for everything.
For Jack Kindle and Jimmy Oskie, the talk is over. The car is tuned, and Saturday night looms ahead. Once again, Jimmy Oskie has to prove he's still number one. Tomorrow night, we see if he does. Last night, I introduced you to one of the fastest sports in Southern California, sprint car racing, and the fastest of the sprinters, Jimmy Oskie. Tonight, the conclusion of that report. It's early Saturday evening, sprint car night at Ascot Park in Gardena. And although tonight's main event is still hours away, the drivers and pit crews are already maneuvering on the rutty dirt track. Only about half of these drivers will make it into tonight's 50-lap main event. First, they must qualify. Then this is the man they'll try to beat. 32-year-old Jimmy Oskie of Downey, 3-time California Racing Association sprint car champion, and this year's CRA point leader. These are the machines. An ultralight fiberglass body with a 350 horsepower engine. They're push-started because in a sprinter, you have no clutch or transmission. But you can't really know a sprint car unless you get in one. By way of our camera, we're going to put you inside the cockpit of Jimmy Oskie's #1 JFK car during 2 qualifying laps. This is what it's like to power around Ascot's half-mile dirt track in about 21 seconds.
You have to give it a pitch going into the turn and turn the wheels to the right and apply the power. And it's mostly not that much turning. You guide it with the power going sideways through the turns. And the only turning mostly is going into the turns where you have to turn the wheel and give it a big pitch going in. Then it's more or less controlled by the power.
During the heat races and consolation event, Jimmy Oskie paces the infield, mingling with some of the other drivers. Regulars like Rick Gowdy of Cerritos, the number 2 car driver Dean Thompson of Redondo Beach, and Tony Simon of Upland. The banter is upbeat and friendly, but out on the track, the faces are masked, the emotions charged, and there is a rage to win. Moments before the main event, Jimmy Oskie becomes a private man. Alone in turn 1, he checks the condition of the track and quietly psychs himself for the 50 laps ahead. The green flag comes down, and there's a mighty charge of sprint cars slicing through turn 1. Moments later, in the frantic dash, a car spins out and must be hauled away. Jimmy Oskie holds a clear lead through the first few laps, but now there's close company. Leland McSpadden of Tempe, Arizona is pressing hard, and suddenly the race is on. McSpadden in car 75A, always snapping from behind, always intimidating, as both cars race wheel to wheel through the turns and the pace grows furious.
I always drove with common sense, and I always tried to know my limitations. And it seemed the more I learned, the more experience I got, the harder I could go, and I still felt stable enough to not knowing I was going to crash. Of course, there's a lot of things that can happen that you can't do nothing about. You just have to worry about that when it happens, just hang on. But I've had good luck. I've really never been hurt. And I'd just soon maybe run second and take a chance and crash him to win.
Jimmy Oskie hangs on, and when the checkered flag comes down, car number 1 is still in the lead.
Thanks.
Tonight, there'll be a celebration at the JFK trailer. It was a thriller of a race, and there'll be congratulations and autographs. And as for tomorrow?
Sprint car racing, to me, is a real challenge. And it's just, if I had somebody offer me an Indianapolis car to drive, just here to drive it, I think I'd be no problem me getting in it and driving it. I think I'd like to do that.
But right now, for Jimmy Oskie, the dirt car sprinters is where it's at. Dirty, fast, and fun.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, I've driven sprint cars. It's gas. It really is. I'm not as good as these guys, but I get out there and ramble around.
Yeah.
Gas and dust.
Gas and dust. Love them both. Yes, sir.